yesterday we learned that Activision has finally separated from Bungie in regards to Destiny 2 and the Destiny IP in general. Now Bungie owns all of the rights to Destiny, the IP, everything, so on and so forth. So I did see that there was another report that came out today that said that the analysts are pretty much saying that Destiny 3 will be out in 2020. That's what their guess is. I think that makes sense to because I mean that this Destiny 2 did come out. Yeah, the time adds up. It's pretty accurately, so we'll see about that. But first and foremost, I wanted to ask you guys' opinion about this. First and foremost, two questions. Number one, what do you think? Are you happy that Destiny is now its own thing for Bungie and no longer part of Activision? And then number two, do you think that someone else may try to come in and acquire, that Destiny IP as well as Bungie now that Activision is no longer in the picture? So, Gary, since I know that you are a diehard Destiny fan, and I recall you just could not stop playing the first game, what are your thoughts on this particular topic?
There's a lot to unpack here, and there's another conversation regarding this that I want to have, but I'm going to focus specifically on the Bungie thing first, and I'll come back to that after we finish discussing Bungie specifically. So, to me, I can kind of, the news was surprising to me when I saw it. But when I thought back to everything I'd heard about the handling of both Destiny and Destiny 2, it kind of made sense. Because I remember hearing specifically with Destiny 2 that there were a lot of things that the team at Bungie were unhappy about that they were forced to do because of Activision. Particularly with the way the drops are handled and things like that. The drops that you get as you play and things like that. So yeah, like it makes sense. Like, because I heard a lot of behind the scenes stuff that they didn't always agree on certain things, and then when you think back to that first Destiny and you think about how they were selling the experience as something that was supposed to be like a 10-year thing. And, what did we get? We got Destiny 1 and we got Destiny 2, within like 2 years of each other or something, like 2 or 3 years. So clearly they didn't live up to what they originally planned to do. And I do feel like Bungie had a more grand idea of what Destiny should be. But Activision are just so money hungry that I feel like their business practices kind of stepped on Bungie's toes a little bit, and that changed the entire course of what they had planned. Now we know Bungie to be a very talented and a very creative studio. We've seen what they did with the Halo games, and Destiny, hands down, that first Destiny, I would still say it's one of the most standout games of this generation just because of the impact that it had and the things that it did, the things that it introduced to this generation. And I feel like if Bungie was given full reign to do just whatever they want, that could have been like monumental. Like, it could have been way bigger. We could have still been playing that first Destiny. It probably would just be, a lot different now. Like, there would be a lot more content for it. They probably wouldn't even be a Destiny 2. So I could see why this would happen, and I'm actually happy for Bungie that this happened, because I feel like now that they're kind of going independent, depending how you perceive things, because there were a few other news tidbits that happened around this story, but if they are going fully independent and staying independent, and they're going to have the freedom to do what they want to do, then I think this works out better for them in the long run. And, they retain the rights to Destiny. So I'm very interested now to see what they're going to do next. So I'm happy for them. The only thing I'm worried about is budgeting and things like that, because are they, if they're independent, are they going to be able to put in the budgets that they need? Are they going to get support from all the other people and everything? And of course we've seen different things, like Phil Spencer came out and tweeted saying he's looking forward to working with them again and things like that. So
I actually didn't see that tweet.
Oh, you didn't see that? Yeah,
that's news to me.
He was saying I can't remember the exact quote, but it was along the lines of he's looking forward to working with talented Bungie again and things like that. And that got people wondering whether Microsoft was going to step in and buy them again. Of course, that conversation came up. But I think the best thing for Bungie is to stay independent and continue to make third-party projects. I don't think it will be beneficial to, go back to Microsoft or even go to Sony, if they offered. Like, I think they should just stay where they're at, and just do the independent third-party thing. Because look at what CD Projekt is doing. Like, they're third-party, and they're putting out great stuff, great content, and, they're doing what they want to do. And I feel like Bungie needs to be in that kind of space. So that's what I want from them. But what do you guys think?
All right, I have a few thoughts, but I'm going to go to Ed first. So Ed, the first question is, what do you think about this Bungie now going independent, and do you think that there's anybody that should pick them up?
I think somebody should pick them up, but I don't think it would be in Bungie's best interest, because at this point, like, they were a part of Microsoft, they were a part of Activision. I think by now they know, like, okay, we don't really like having like a parent company tell us what to do, or like, I would assume that now and especially now that they own Destiny, it's like, okay, this is our baby, we have full control, let's keep it that way. And I feel like, I mean, I don't know how much Activision played a part in Destiny. I know they did, as far as like the content that was released, the timely content. I believe Activision was the ones who told Bungie that, like, hey, y'all gotta drop stuff like once a year instead of like, oh, do this like multiple times a year, like, kind of making Destiny a service. From what I read, I'm not entirely accurate.
That's accurate.
But yeah, and I feel like, Destiny was always a game that it was good, but it always had like a little bit of shortcomings that made it like the standout game that I think that it has the potential to be. So I guess now that, they have full control of this, it's literally on them at this point. Like, if Destiny 3 or whatever they're going to do next doesn't pan out, that's on them. And I really like that position for them, because, it's like you're, at this point, you're letting your work speak for itself now. You got nobody intruding in what you want. Everybody's going to want to publish your game anyways. Like, I'm pretty sure Sony or Microsoft will throw money at you to, hey, brand this game on our console. Like, let the Destiny 3 commercials be Xbox or something. So, that's probably the only type of partnership that they would do. But yeah, I'm just curious to see what happens to them. I think Gary made a good point that they could be like a CD Projekt Red. And I hope they don't become like a small studio doing like, little games and stuff like that. Like, nah, they have the resources to make these massive games, and I hope they continue that. Don't go to EA. Don't go to EA.
Yeah, EA. Well, no, EA has their own. Speaking of EA, I mean, I am going to make a couple of shocking comments now in regards to this situation. So, I know Gary made the comment earlier that he feels that Destiny is still one of the most standout games from this generation in terms of it being a new game. I understand when Destiny first came out, it did feel like it was a phenomenon. There was no early review scores because it was an online only game. So I remember when we had got our copy, it was very clear that this is not, we got it the day of launch. So I understand what Gary is saying, but I do believe that EA's little game with BioWare called Anthem, that can definitely be better than the first Destiny because it will actually have a story. Because that first Destiny game, that story was complete garbage. The character names, whether it's what is the Watcher, the Witch, the Visitor. It's just the most random cookie cutter name that you could think of for some of the characters. So that. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, that plus the actual story, and I know that it was revealed later that the original script that was written, I mean they made sure not to use that guy. That was the guy who I believe Marty O'Donnell, I believe, who worked on Halo, who was doing some of that original writing for that story, but they just said no, we're not going to do that. They wanted to take it in another direction. So I do think that Bungie definitely is better off doing their own stuff independently. Of course, when you do decide to become independent, it is a game of looking at your finances and making sure you're managing them efficiently. But if you know your audience and they know the type and love the type of work that you do, there's definitely a way for them to do that. Now, I know that they definitely want to possibly do a Destiny 3. That's fine. If I was them, I would have just started with a new project completely. But because Destiny already has a fan base, they want to make sure they want to do Destiny 3 so that they can definitely capitalize off of that. But after Destiny 3, I want to see them work on something completely different. If Destiny 3 is a success, but I'm pretty sure it's going to be successful because, again, it already has a fan base, and there's going to be a lot of fans who enjoyed Destiny 1 and 2 who want to see what they actually do with the third one when Activision is not involved in anything that they're doing. So I'll be curious to see what the future holds for the game. I am glad they are separated from everybody else. And Phil Spencer's comment, very interesting to hear that. But Phil, they are too busy acquiring a whole bunch of other studios. So if Phil Spencer doesn't decide to acquire this, I'll be happy for that. Let him continue to work with what they have already acquired. But yeah, we'll see what happens with Destiny. But I will tell you this, that Anthem, we've had a lot of jokes on this show. Anthem is going to be trash. I don't know, man. Anthem could end up being a good game. I mean, the funny thing about Destiny is that it inspired so many other games this generation, like Anthem, The Division, so on and so forth. And The Division is still, received pretty positively as well. And so I know The Division 2 is going to do well when that comes out in March. But we'll just have to wait and see what happens with Destiny. But yeah, Gary, you are right. That is what started the trend this generation in terms of the type of game that it was. So I'm very curious to see what Bungie does next to add more to this franchise now that they don't have to worry about any restrictions from Activision. So we'll see. So
I do have some things to say about Anthem, but I'll save that for later. And before I get into the other thing I wanted to address, just to kind of like harp on what you were saying, I do think they're gonna focus on making Destiny 3 or whatever they may call it, but I think they're going to really make the Destiny that they wanted to make originally now, and I don't think it's going to be a case of, okay, this is Destiny 3, and then, after Destiny 3, we're going to make this game and then this other game. I feel like they are going to make a new Destiny, and it's going to be an ongoing service that they're going to continue to produce content for years to come. Like, if you look at Warframe and games like that, I think they're going to do something like that, where it's like, this is their breadwinner game, like their flagship game that they're going to keep working on for years.
That is a great. That is a great idea. So if that happens, Gary, Bungie owe you some money.
Oh yeah, I mean, yeah, I guess they could give me some money, but this is what they originally wanted to do, so it makes sense that now, you know, if they have full control over the IP, now they can do it because, you know, now they're free of Activision. So speaking of Activision, I'm going to get into what I wanted to say, and Activision are quickly getting into my bad books right now because I've been following a lot of Activision Blizzard news because obviously, you know, I'm a Blizzard fan. I love Overwatch, and I love a few of the other Blizzard titles. Now, I've been seeing a lot of things over the past couple months, like there's CEOs in Blizzard and Activision like leaving all the time, selling their stocks and just bouncing and things like that. There's a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes that doesn't always get reported. But, you know, I follow a lot of like dark web bloggers on YouTube and stuff that cover all the Activision Blizzard stuff. So I see everything that's going on with Activision and Blizzard, and it seems like there's a lot of infighting between Activision and Blizzard. Now, for those who aren't aware, like, you know, it wasn't a case of Activision acquiring Blizzard. This is actually like a partnership kind of thing. It's like they're both at equal level within like it's a merger basically. Like the two companies merged, and they're both equal in the merger kind of thing. But there's a lot of infighting going on between Activision and Blizzard, and it all comes down to earnings and how much revenue the entity as a whole is making. And Activision feels like Blizzard are wasting too much money by having the same games and not putting out enough new games like consistently. So Activision wants Blizzard to make more, you know, games consistently. And you know, it's led to a lot of infighting, and Activision has been having people from Blizzard leave like to work on other games at Activision and things like that, and that's hurting the Blizzard games. And it's hurting Overwatch as a matter of fact, because there's a lot of new features and new content that was supposed to come, but it's been delayed just because there's so much other stuff going on in Activision Blizzard. And then also with Heroes of the Storm, they cancelled the entire esports tournament for 2019. So things like that are happening, you know, at Blizzard, and people are leaving Blizzard all the time. They're becoming more short-staffed on their projects, and you know, even the Overwatch League has been in question a few times to where like how can they afford it kind of thing. So when you see all these different things happening between Activision Blizzard, it completely makes sense that it didn't work out with Activision and Bungie, you know, and you can see why, because if Activision has this mindset where they just want to pump out new iterations of games constantly, like Call of Duty, you could see why other studios who actually want to focus on creating great content and, you know, serving the fan base and providing what gamers actually want, you could see how they wouldn't get along with Activision, and they wouldn't play nicely together because Activision just has a completely different mindset. So I just wanted to, you know, bring that up to shine more light on Activision's way of thinking and, you know, how they do business as a whole. And I just hope that, you know, they don't continue to cripple companies like Bungie and Blizzard. And also, you know, we saw when you saw that whole controversy over the Diablo game that's coming to mobile.
Oh yeah.
Activision actually pushed for that. They said it's a fact. Like they said They said they needed to make more mobile content, and that put pressure on Blizzard, and they had to come up with some mobile content. So there you go.
Well, that's so yeah. Basically, this is the bad side of Activision, which is why Bungie is happy. They were celebrating that they finally are no longer a part of that. Well, I must admit, I didn't know all this was happening with Activision and Blizzard. So that's I don't know what to say about that, man. Hopefully, you still will have an Overwatch 2 in the future.
Well, see, that's the thing. I don't want like the fan base of Overwatch. They don't particularly want an Overwatch 2. They just want new content for Overwatch as it is now. Like they want new things added to this game. So
do they want a campaign, a story mode campaign, or do they say no? We only like the multiplayer. We don't need no other story content.
I mean, yeah, but everyone wants story content, and what they've been doing is they've been releasing, like, they have certain events where for a limited time you get to play certain story-based missions. So they had one last year where you get to, like, play a few of the characters before they, before one of the characters turned into a bad guy, you got to play, like, his mission kind of thing. So they had that last year, and it lasted for like a month. But what happened after that was they didn't make any more content like that. They didn't make any more new story-based content like that because they didn't have the staff or the resources to do it because of reasons like this that what I just explained about Activision. So
interesting.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely potential for Blizzard to add more story content to the games, but it's just a case of they don't have the staff and the budget and everything like that to do it. So.
Yeah, no, I totally understand that.
And they're working on so many things, so yeah.
Well, that's interesting. I didn't know anything about that, but I guess I know Ed doesn't care about Overwatch. Hopefully, that news didn't put him to sleep. I
feel like every developer is kind of responsible for themselves. Like, I don't think that everything is like Activision doing it. Like, Blizzard is also like, bro, you're like Blizzard. Like, how are you letting some dork CEO tell you what to do, what to make? Like, I just don't believe that.
I mean, it all comes down to shareholders, because at the end of like every period or year or whatever, they're looking at it like, okay, Activision is here making a ton of money every year off of this Call of Duty game and these other things that they're doing, and Blizzard just has the same games and the same fan base, but it's a very huge and a very loyal fan base, mind you. But the shareholders don't care about that. They just want the money to grow. They don't care about stability and the same loyal following that's going to guarantee them money every year. They just want new money. Like they're greedy. So that's what creates situations like that.
And maybe this is taking it a little bit too far-fetched, but the way I also look at it is that once the people hire you and they are paying you, then they pretty much are going to try to control every aspect of whatever it is that you make, because it's for them and for their own benefit. They don't care about, you have an idea of something you want to do? Well, that's too bad. You're going to do what the hell I want to do because I'm the one that's paying. So that's possibly another reason why they just said, you're going to make this game and that's it. But exactly. That's just my thought.
I feel like Blizzard should call their bluff.
They should, but it's that's America. That's your country, right there.
But also, like, hold on, just real quick. But like, somebody at Blizzard has to want to work on something new. Like, if I was a developer, if I was like a game developer, whatever, I would not want to work at Valve, and I would not want to work at Blizzard. because you get stuck doing the same boring shit. I would assume that you're a creative person, like, and you're at this company and you don't get to like create anything new. You're just doing expansion packs for Warcraft or whatever. Like, I would quit.
Yeah, and see, like, a lot of the reason why Blizzard lasted so long even before this merger is because a lot of them were actual fans of the games. Like, they were passionate about the games. Like, you know, they were actual people who had passion for these projects specifically. So a lot of the developers and the people working there, they were happy to, you know, endure all the, like you said, like the same stuff over and over because they were that passionate about it. But now they're more of a corporate, it's more of a corporate environment, so now they're having people who aren't happy to continue to work on projects, and, you know, that creates a lot of issues too. So, I mean, yeah, you're right in some regard, like, there are going to be people who don't like working on the same thing over and over, but that's it's like a side effect of their growth, of them getting bigger. Like, you know, now they have to deal with that, whereas before, when they were smaller, it was all people who were passionate about, you know, those games. So
yeah, interesting.
Do you think you know how like it takes them a long time to make a sequel, like a full sequel? Do you think it'll take as long to do Overwatch 2?
Yeah, probably, because they were working on Overwatch for years. Like, at one point, it was called something completely different, Titan or something like that.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, so it would probably take them a long time, and plus they have so much going on for the current Overwatch that they have to worry about. So, it's not gonna.
That's probably what Activision would want, though, right?
Yeah, that's.
Oh yeah,
that's what. See,
they definitely want Activision. They're gonna definitely want an Overwatch 2 now after this. After Bungie's gone. Yeah.
If Activision had their own way, there would be an Overwatch every single year. So.
But see, why doesn't that happen?
I do not want a new Overwatch every single year. Like
but like why? Like, but that goes to the point where you said that Activision comes in and they'll be like, "Oh, make a Diablo mobile." How come they can't come in and be like, "Hey, it's 2 years now. Let's start working on Overwatch 2."
I mean, that's what they're trying to do essentially, but
it's gonna happen. It's gonna happen, and Gary will be pissed, but he will still pick up and buy Overwatch 2 when that happens.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know how I feel, because the type of game it is, like, they don't need a new one. Like, they just need to add to this one, you know.
Okay, let's make a Overwatch with a story. Like, let's tell the story of Tracer.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, you could add that to this one. Like, you could just add the story content straight into this Overwatch that exists now.
But what if they want to do like fully revamped graphics and new engine and everything?
Then yeah, I guess they would need a different game. But
I just.
Oh, go ahead.
I just want to make a quick little random comment about Overwatch, and then I promise we can get back on topic, and then we can go to the other topics. I just find it very fascinating how when Overwatch came out, it was just the bare bones, didn't have all the content, but people praised this game. And for this entire generation, there have been many games like this where it comes out, it's not completely finished, but it gets trash. But games like this, because it's Blizzard, because of the Blizzard and stuff like that, it's just like it got a pass. Because when I saw the game, don't get it twisted, the game is fun. When it first came out, yeah, it's fine, but to me, it didn't really look like it had that much content. So now, but the story thing is something I always go back to because I figure, man, they could have added something to that. But again, I just find it interesting how there are people that complain when a game comes out, it doesn't have everything, then they complain about some of that. But then depending on who the developer is, they're like, oh, well, don't worry about that. We'll give that a pass, and we'll just still play the game because that developer is awesome. So I just find that interesting how that's how some things are these days. But I don't want to go off topic.
It's because like Overwatch as a concept is different to your normal first-person shooter. Like this was made to be an online esport shooter kind of game, you know. Like it wasn't made to be like a Call of Duty or your usual first-person shooters with a campaign mode and a separate online. Like it wasn't designed to be like that. Like it was, and it wasn't that it like when it came out, it wasn't unfinished. Like that was the game. That was how it's supposed to be, and it was going to introduce more heroes over time and more content over time. Like that's the game that they made it to be. And if you look at Blizzard's history, that's the type of game they make. They make online experiences that they continue to add to. You know, they don't make these big campaign games like and then move on to the next one or whatever. Like they make WoW, which has been going for like over what is it, like 17 years now or something, 16 17, something like that. And they have Diablo, they have Hearthstone. All of these are online experiences that have been going for years, and they continue to add content to it. So Overwatch, it wasn't supposed to be like your regular story mode game. So it wasn't that it was unfinished. It was just that people expected it to have story mode and all this stuff because it was like the characters are so well designed and they were memed so much and they were appearing so much on social media that people were like, how come this doesn't have a story? Like, where's the story? Why is it just like, a shooter? Like, so that's why those conversations were happening, because people were so attracted to the characters and the animated shorts. So they didn't really understand, what the game was. They assumed that it was a story game.
So. I got you. That's okay. That's a good explanation. Yes. Okay. We're good. We're good on that now. I understand.